right, y'all, it's your legal bestie, attorney Simone. I am sorry that I have been away for so long, but we are going to get right into it. We have a busy docket today. So these are the topics on our docket. Make sure you hit that like and you hit that subscribe as y'all come on in. And also let me know what additional comments and what additional topics you guys want me to cover in the future by placing them below. So here's what we have on the docket today, y'all. Okay. So we know Maurene Comey was fired. Fired. It was not a mishap. There was no confusion. She was fired about a week ago. Well, her letter, her email to all the staff, y'all, was leaked. And so we have excerpts of it that I want to share with you. So we've got Maurene Comey's leaked letter to her staff because she has concerns. We also have on the docket, y'all have been asking about T.I. and Tiny. What is the deal with their $71 million lawsuit that has gotten dramatically cut down? We're going to talk about what happened and why. Thank you. You like my hair? Oh, I have to be y'all like this hair. This is another U-part wig. I got it off of Amazon. I'm gonna have to link it. I'll have to link it below in the video. So as well, we've got T.I. and Tiny. What's going on with that, y'all? Then y'all know that Astronomer case with the CEO and head of HR who've been doing it to each other, y'all, and got caught at the Coldplay video. I'm at the Coldplay concert on video. Okay, we're gonna break that down, y'all. Because there's some lawsuits that can be filed. And if you, for example, if you have been an employee of Astronomer, okay, and Kristen, the HR lady, been getting on your nerves, this just might be your time to bring a hostile work environment claim because a lot of people don't know. Okay. Them two over there doing it to each other, whether they're sexually harassing each other or not, it could actually give rise to a sexual harassment claim for other employees. Because if you are not receiving the same advantages that Kristen is receiving for opening them legs broad and wide like she's been doing, then you actually could have a claim as well. So we're going to get into that, as well as what are some of the options for the CEO's wife, right? Because I always hate when I see these wives, be dragged into these embarrassing kind of situations. What are her options? What potentially could she get as a result of this humiliation and this emotional anguish, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And last but not least, we're going to cover Shannon Sharpe's alleged settlement, with the OnlyFans model and how ESPN basically forced Shannon into this settlement and whether or not you guys think that's fair. So laying it low and spreading it wide. Another said, yep. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's get started. First, we're going to start with Miss Maurene. Okay, Maureen. Oh, and don't forget, there we go. Let's get this here. All right, don't forget, guys, if you have any title closings anywhere in the state of Texas, please go to my website, experiencetitleLLC.com. We would be happy to close your real estate transaction, residential or commercial. That's experiencetitleLLC.com in Texas. All right. So first up, poor Maurene. Y'all, I feel sorry for Maurene. This photo of Maurene, okay, Maurene leaving the courthouse after being fired and humiliated. Poor Maurene looked like Maurene just been woe out. Okay. Maurene has had a time. But Maurene Comey, obviously we know that she, air quotes, they say, lost the Diddy trial. I won't say that she lost it. She did get the conviction on the hookers, which I said, I was like, ain't no way you can get out of the hookers. But she lost on the two major counts, right? She lost on the two biggest counts. Now, some, particularly on the Republican side, have said, well, she's lost two major cases. I said, well, what was the other one? Y'all, they talking about she lost the Epstein case. She didn't lose that. That man either unalived or got unalived. That's not her fault. She has worked for the Southern District of New York for 10 years. The bottom line is Trump hates her daddy and was retaliating against her and firing her. The truth is, if she wants to fire an employment lawsuit, she could have good grounds. You can't fire somebody because you don't like their daddy. You, at least not. So every state, there are work at will states where you don't have to have any reason whatsoever. But then there are also states where You can't use an arbitrary reason to fire someone that's not equally applied. Now, I don't think she don't want to work there. And many have said that it was improper how Maureen was fired. They said, for example, they could have transferred her, this, that, and the third. Some have said that Trump wanted her fired because he simply couldn't trust her as a result of who her dad is, which sounds crazy, but okay, whatever. But the reason that they kept her on is, remember, the initial indictment against Diddy was filed by Damian Williams. He was an African American U.S. attorney for the Southern District. He also pursued charges against Trump. So needless to say, he resigned prior to Trump taking office because he knew he was going to lose his job. He's gone. And so Maureen was the most senior attorney in the office who knew all the facts. They had to keep her there. There was no one else who had the experience, who could bring the case to fruition. Here's what Miss Maureen had to say, though. She's about sick of these people. She needed to go. She needed to go. Now she can go into private practice and make oodles and noodles of dollars. I hope she can make a whole bunch of money, right? But here's what I'm going to read you guys some excerpts because my vision is terrible. It says, Comey, who prosecuted Epstein, was fired by the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office amid a public uproar over the Attorney General's decision not to release additional files in the Epstein case. So they're saying it's related to Epstein as well. And it says, one day after being fired by the Justice Department, Maureen, y'all, this was a leak. You know, I'm nosy. I love a good leak. Maureen told her former colleagues, y'all, this was in an email. So she used her personal email and she sent this out to her colleagues. She told her former colleagues that, quote, fear is the tool of a tyrant. Talking about Trump. She says, quote, appearing to take aim at the upper ranks of the DOJ and perhaps the president, according to a copy of the message that she sent to the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office that was obtained by Politico, referring to the office's longstanding motto of operating, quote, without fear or favor, meaning they don't have to worry about public opinion. They pursue the law and they do what's right for justice. This is Comey, who's the daughter of former director James Comey, who prosecuted both Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell, told her former colleagues in a note Thursday that, quote, we have entered a new phase where without fear may be the challenge. In other words, the concern is that prosecutors can't just prosecute cases based on the law and right and wrong, that they are only going to be able to do the president's bidding. And then that is the concern. She says, if a career prosecutor can be fired without a reason, fear may seep into the decisions of those who remain. Don't let that happen. Fear is a tool of a tyrant wielded to suppress independent thought. Instead of fear, let this moment fuel the fire that already burns at the heart of this place, a fire of righteous indignation at abuses of power, of commitment to seek justice for victims, of dedication to truth above all else. Comey didn't immediately respond, blah, blah, blah. Listen, now I have to say I was annoyed. I was a little annoyed with Comey just in some of the claims. For example, I spoke about this before, y'all. I felt like with the trafficking charge, they should have just stuck with they should have stuck with Cassie. They didn't need to bring Jane and her confusion all up in that. I felt like that was a bad judgment call. But does it warrant firing? No, not necessarily. Here's the thing, though. She was going to be fired whether she won the Diddy case or not. She was going to be fired because the president hates her daddy. And that's just how he rolls. He is vindictive. So whether she won or lost, yes. That's right. Courtney said, shake that Astroglide. I don't know what I did with my Astroglide. Hold on, let me see if I still got an Astroglide. No. Yeah, my mama cleaned out my purse and she stole my Astroglide. She probably put it in a trash can. But yeah, if you've watched this channel before, you know I shake the Astroglide when it's a Diddy related topic and we're making important points. It just is Maureen was gonna go. Did Maureen have some crazy arguments that I'm like really did not relate to the jury? Yes. When Maureen got up there right after he was convicted of the hookers and she was telling the judge that, she wanted him to not receive bail, that she wanted Diddy to not get bail. She says, Your Honor, I'm seeking 20 years. I said, now, girl, Now, girl, now she walked that back later the same day in the afternoon. But Maurene just been woe out. Okay. So Maurene, I'm sorry to hear this, but I was glad that Maurene stood up. She sent a little email to everybody else. She's gonna be a millionaire. Marine's gonna be just fine. Okay. So let's move on. We're gonna move on with the docket. Next up on the docket, y'all, T.I. and Tiny's jury verdict. All right. So here's the thing. This just, y'all, this pissed me off so bad. It pissed me off so bad. Here we are. T.I. and Tiny's $71 million award in the doll suit was cut down. Here we go. Let me add this up. Sorry. T.I. and Tiny settlement. So they got $71 million initially. It was cut down to $17 million. Here's why. They took away the punitive damages. And I'm going to show you why the jury awarded a punitive damages. Now, this is federal court. So you know how Maurene Comey was just talking about how, we don't work under fear, la-di-da-di-da. Well, that's because, remember, in court, unlike state court, those judges are appointed by the President of the United States, and it is a lifetime appointment. As a result, they don't have to worry about public opinion and you liking that judge, because they can't go, you can't do nothing about it if you don't like them. Oh, well, they there till they, croak. So here in this case, it was a federal judge. This federal judge decided, and I'm going to read it to you here. This pissed me off some. I feel like this is, I'm sorry to say, but I feel like this is the crap that they do. By they, I mean that judges do when the people who look like us. I'm going to say it. If T.I. and Tiny had been a corporation, I feel like there is no way. Here we go. There was no way they would have removed it. So here we go. Here it is. All right. So specifically, Tuesday in the ruling, the judge determined that the $53 million for punitive damages. So the regular verdict part was was $17 million. That was for the damages, just the regular part of the case. But the jury felt like what they did was so malicious, was so intentional that they should get punitive damages. And here's what punitive damages is, okay? Punitive damages is like when you would stand at your house. Hold on. Let me put my picture back up here so y'all can see me a little bit. All right, punitive damages is like when you stand at your granny's house, right, with your bad cousins, right, and y'all running around the house, and she done told y'all 15 times to go sit down somewhere, and somebody knock over one who did it. She don't really care. And she lined all y'all up and she said, go get a switch. And she gets the switch and she whooped everybody in front of each other. She whooped all the cousins in front. That's punitive damages. Punitive damages are where, because I told you not to do this, because what you did was so intentional, because you knew better, the law is going to make an example out of you and is going to demand, going to give higher damages than they otherwise would have. So let me show you why I feel that they absolutely should have gotten all 53 million. So what happened is the judge says, oh, I don't see any grounds for the 53 million. Here we go. Specifically, the judge says, oh, in assessing the evidence of the toy company's, quote, willfulness or intent, if the pair isn't willing to take the recovery of the remaining $17.9 million left, they can appeal and they can file for a new trial. Remember, here is the standard, y'all. The standard is willful or intentional. Now look at this. Look at this. I'm about to show you. Willful or intentional. Does that look intentional to you? On the left are the OMG Girl members. On the right are the infringing toys. If that's not willful and intentional, what else is? Y'all hotter than fish grease. I'm upset about this. Excuse me. Hit that like, y'all, as we come in. We've got more than 300 in here. We've only got 100 likes. If this is not intentional, even they are down to the same color hair. It's ain't but 4 girls in the group, y'all. Ain't but 4 girls in the group. Every last one of the dolls has the same color hair as one of these girls. These are not natural hair colors. So you mean to tell me you got a one doll with the green hair, another one with the half fuchsia, half black hair. That's exhibit 1. I think that is there. There we go. Exhibit 3 is half fuchsia, half black. Exhibit 5, purple hair, purple dog. Doll, not dog. And then exhibit 6, you get the little turquoise scenario going on, right? But with the little bob and the short situation. That's not intentional. They knew exactly what the heck they were doing. They even have on yes, these are custom outfits, tour outfits. Oh yeah, this is ridiculous. So here's the option. So here's what T.I. and Tiny are facing. So the judge says, oh, well, if you don't like it, you can go for a new trial. Child, they done already had 3 trials. The first trial, it was found against them. They appealed it. They got a new trial. And the second trial, I believe it was like a hung jury or mistrial. And then it was this one. I could be incorrect on the first and the second, but the gist of it was, this is the 3rd trial. And what the problem with this is, there was a jury who decided this. And this judge went in there and says, I don't care what the jury says. I'm going to make my own verdict. You're not supposed to do that. So, and then the judge is saying, basically, they can't simply appeal that 53 million that's been gone. No. They would need to have a whole new trial on punitive damages. I'm going to tell you this. As an attorney, I'm going to say, run it up. Run it up. Let's go. As an attorney, if you're giving me only a $1, not even $1 million, $1 for punitive damages, hey, I ain't got nothing but time, baby. I got time and space. For $1, I would say it's worth my time to go ahead, because it would only be a trial on the punitive damages part. The other stuff, and here's the thing, the jury would know. The jury would know they were already found liable of infringement. You, jury, just get to decide, was this intentional? Excuse me. And then that's where you got to get a jury expert. Whoever was Diddy's jury expert, get that person in there. You need them same old deli workers that were on Diddy's trial. Get that deli worker, get that big girl that was in there giggling. Get her in there, because she ain't got nothing to do. Get Mr. Smiley sitting in the back, and Bertha need to be in there. Bertha, that older lady in that courtroom, y'all know I was in the Diddy courtroom. I was covering the trial. Get Bertha in there. So yes, this would literally be their 4th trial if they decide they're not okay with the $1 in punitive damages. I have not seen evidence of such intentional infringement like this in a real long time. What do you, let me know your thoughts in the chat. Do you feel like this in here in the exhibit in the photo, that is the infringement? Do you feel like that looked like an accident? Does that look willful or intentional? Willful means, I know that this group existed. What I think is, they knew that these girls existed, and they thought, we ain't worried about these little black girls. So what? They're not gonna have the money, or they're not gonna come up against us. We are a major international toy company, and they thought they can get away with it. And I'm very proud of T.I. and Tiny for fighting all these years as they have. Now, another option for T.I. and Tiny is they actually can go and do a mediation with the toy company and come to an agreement that they will take a number somewhere in between. So we know they get the 17 million, that's clear. But that one got cut down, from $53 million down to $1. Maybe they could come to an agreement for like 20 million. Sometimes you do that as attorneys because you don't want to have to go through a whole trial. And when you come to an agreement like that, then you're guaranteed payment and you get paid quicker. So that's the option. All right, next up. So the next 2 things on the docket, y'all, Shannon Sharpe and Astronomer. We're gonna do Mr. Shannon. Man, get on my nerves. We're gonna do Shannon next, y'all. We're gonna get Mr. Sharpe. All right, Shannon Sharpe. Uncle Shannon Absolutely intentional. I absolutely agree. It says, did the judge have to indicate how he determined it was not willful? Let's see. He does. In his opinion, he is supposed to explain that. This is for Ti and Tiny. It says, da, 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 da. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, he didn't give too much of an explanation. Let me see in this article. Oh, this is what he said. Hold on. Make sure to see if it's showing. The judge stated, quote, there was no reliable evidence that MGA had any knowledge of the group's trade dress or desire to use their likeness. Trade dress is literally how they look. It says there's no evidence that MGA had any knowledge, in other words, of the group's decor, design, how they wore their hair, all of that stuff, in order to use their likeness to create the infringing dolls. The strong appearance that MGA copied other celebrities does not provide clear and convincing evidence that such was the case for the OMG girls. Hey, stupid, it was on TV. They abso-freaking-lutely could have seen that. The fact that it was in the public domain, these girls were touring. They were all over Disney Channel, YouTube, social media. That is absolutely evidence. They could have seen that. What? Do you want one of the executives to be like, oh, yeah, I watched the YouTube? They're never going to get that. This was a bull honky verdict, completely and totally. Bull crap. And it's making me mad. So now we're going to switch and we're going to go back to old freaky Uncle Shannon. All right. Exactly. Yeah. Mrs. String said, oh, please, why even have a jury? Exactly. How can you say that when they are costumes not bought in a store? Well, because they wore similar attire throughout touring. Those were their looks. So it's argued. All right, Uncle Shannon, I'm your legal bestie, Attorney Simone, and here is the real deal with the Shannon Sharpe secret settlement. So ESPN really put the pressure on Shannon to get this thing resolved. So as you know, the OnlyFans model, represented by Tony Busby, sued Sharpe for $50 million, alleging SA. There were different text messages that were shared by Mr. Busby. Now, Shannon's position was this was all consensual, but that they were exposing only components and portions of audio to make it look like it wasn't. Well, in the end, the problem was this. This was not Shannon's first time being accused of this. In 2023, he was accused by this little nutty girl. Her name was Michelle Evans. Michelle Evans is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Okay. She's nuts. I covered her and her allegations previously on this channel. But Cuckoo Michelle previously alleged that Shannon essayed her in this lawsuit. And Cuckoo Michelle actually filed the lawsuit from prison. She was in prison because she ran over her husband with her car. That's how hard she loves. She was also allegedly stalking Shannon. Anyway, initially in 2023, as a result of those allegations, ESPN made Shannon take a brief leave while they looked into it. And basically they confirmed that she was in fact cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, that the allegations didn't make any sense. Although that case does continue to be pending, it doesn't have much going on, but that was his first instance. Then this came about. When this allegations happened, everyone was very shocked that ESPN did not immediately force him to take leave. That was unusual, but ultimately they did. Now, one thing Shannon's got to do, number one, is part of the allegations here is that he continued to ask old girl, the OnlyFans model initially, he asked her to sign an NDA multiple times and she refused. And you still gonna do it to her. You're gonna do it to her in her bottom. You're gonna put his stuff in her tuchus, and then you're gonna have audio recordings. This is ridiculous. He walked into this scenario, right? Did not get the NDA signed. Then fast forward, Busby releases his facts. Y'all, Shannon's own lawyers acknowledged that Shannon offered $10 million to settle it. It was at that moment where I was like, Shannon, you need to fire that lawyer and don't hire him to do nothing else. Don't even let him do your taxes, okay? Don't let him come around. Don't even let him do, if you get a DUI, if you get a parking ticket, Don't call that lawyer. No one knew that Shannon offered that woman $10 million until his own lawyer volunteered that information. Do you know how I would take that to my goddamn grave? Okay. I would take that to St. Louis, the First Cemetery in New Orleans, and would nobody know about that. But this nincompoop's lawyer said, "Oh yeah, well we offered her 10 million, but it wasn't because he done anything." Now, first of all, you look super stupid then. Well, then Shannon came out with this statement. And I want you to follow me here. He came out with this statement. This was the statement. Actually, before we go over Shannon's statements, we're going to do, this is Busby's statement that Busby released regarding the not settlement. It says, on April 20th, the Busby law firm filed a complaint in Nevada, making several allegations against Shannon Sharpe on behalf of our client. Both sides acknowledge a long-term, consensual, and tumultuous relationship after protracted and respectful negotiations. I'm pleased to announce that we've reached a mutually agreed upon resolution. Notice, they don't use the word settlement, resolution. And then it says, all matters have now been addressed satisfactorily and the matter's closed. The lawsuit will thus be dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never bring it back. I thought, and I knew this was coming. Here's why. Because this was Shannon's statement from April. Shannon said, my statement is found here and is the truth. The relationship in question was 100% consensual. I'm sorry, I'm going to make this bigger for you guys. 100% consensual. At this juncture, I'm electing to step aside temporarily from my ESPN duties. I will be devoting this time to my family. No, you're not. Your kids are grown. You never married their mama. Y'all were always in two different households, and you was running the streets doing what you wanted to do. Your kids is fine. Okay, your kids are fine. I think they're in their 30s. They fine. He said, I'll be devoting my time to my family and responding and dealing with these false and disruptive allegations set against me. I plan to return to ESPN at the start of the NFL preseason. I sincerely appreciate the overwhelming and ongoing support I have received from my family, fans, friends, and colleagues. Okay, Uncle Shannon. Here's the real deal. ESPN said, go sit down somewhere. You better get this handled. I don't care what you say. Consensual, not, put it in a tuchus, not put it in a tuchus, whatever you got going on. If you want to continue working with us, you better get this resolved by football season. When does football season start, y'all? Next week, the 31st. In other words, ESPN said you better have this resolved with, oh boy, by the end of the month. And Mr. Busby knew it. So Busby had that man. He had that man against the ropes, y'all. Had him against the ropes. So remember, the prior offer was 10 million. In this case, the settlement was at least 20. At least 20. Keep in mind, Mr. Shannon, Uncle Shannon, also had, at least previously, when this case was first filed, had a $100 million podcast deal on the table. Now, there's been no word about that. So he settled this for somewhere between 20 and 50. I do not believe that as an attorney, it was not 50. It was not 50 million. It was closer to 20. Because he knew if the only way he could go back to ESPN next week was to run this girl her money in such a way where she would gleefully and happily even refuse to use the words of settlement. They didn't even call it settlement. They said, oh, we've resolved it. And this was a consensual. Here's what I think. I think it was always consensual. I think it was two freaky dicky people and it was consensual. And she just outsmarted him. She was able to record things because they did that slave play or whatever. Record things where he was saying stuff where she could crop it and he looked like the fool that he looked like right here. And don't nobody feel bad for that man at all. She has now, girl has now retired from OnlyFans. I bet she has. She's hit that jackpot. Yes, 20 million is definitely enough to keep her off the pole. 20 million, you put that in the stock market, an index fund, you never have to work a day again in your life. Somebody said, it's that easy. Yes. Oh yeah, he likes slave play. Oh yeah, that was, they would talk about the baby better and slave play and all. They did that. But here's the thing. What's interesting is if in fact this was extortion, it was malicious prosecution, or any of those other things that both he and Jay-Z and others have accused Busby of doing, even though this has been dismissed with prejudice, Shannon Sharpe can always go back and sue for extortion or any. Still here. All right, can you hear me? Okay, good. ESPN's a family-friendly company. They don't want nothing to do with these shenanigans. And he should have known better. He absolutely, here we go. Okay, I'm back. You see me? All right. Yes. I'm back, guys. Sorry about that. So he should have known better. All right. So last and not least, we're going to conclude on today's docket, Astronomer. Now y'all know, look at these two little freaky deakies. It says, well, how much money is ESPN paying him where he's able to do where 20 million makes sense? Oh, I want to answer this before we switch over to the next topic. Where 20 million makes sense. So he probably actually went out and got a loan. And it's not just, the majority of his money probably isn't just ESPN. It's actually also his podcast. His podcast is doing extremely well. So he probably went out and got a loan, and or attorneys will do a payment plan. We'll say, all right, I want 5 million now. Then when the football season starts, that's your new contract, 5 million. And then what I would do if I was a lawyer, that $100 million podcast deal, if he still got that on the table, we're going to execute a document that says when you're paid on that $100 million podcast deal, we're going to get the first, let's say the balance is 25 million or 10 million, whatever it is. We get that first 10 million and then you get your money. And it'll be what's called a letter of direction, meaning the podcast company cuts the check directly to my law firm. I'm not about to play with y'all. I am not about to play with y'all. Nope. All right. Last but not least, we're going to do Astronomer, y'all. Here's the thing about Astronomer. Blah, blah. Look, we talking about from a different angle, a different angle here. I'm your legal bestie, Attorney Simone. I break down legal cases like I do with my homegirls drunk and brunch. They're drunk and brunch. I'm not drunk. I'm gonna break it down sober. But so with the Astronomer case, there have been updates. So first component of the update was there was a statement that was released, and in that statement, basically, he tried to blame Coldplay. It was believed he tried to blame Coldplay. Come to find out, that was a fake statement. Hit that like, hit that subscribe as you're coming in. That didn't happen. But what has happened is, oh boy, resigned. He stepped down. And here's the thing. And then an investigation has been launched, and she is put on leave. Her name is Kristen, and his name is, I don't really care, but his name is Mr. CEO. Here's the tea, y'all. I don't know, we're going to get this tea up here. Here is the tea. Now, Kristen at HR, don't she look like a Karen, y'all? She looks like a super Karen, okay? Now, Kristen looks like she loves to follow the rules. What a lot of people don't realize is when it comes to sexual harassment, and here, of course, Kristen, she could potentially sue for sexual harassment if she wanted to. Now, notice, they had the CEO resign. They always make the superior leave. If anybody's going to leave, they always make the superior to reduce the chance of getting sued. You can't fire Kristen. She's the subordinate, because under sexual harassment law, it's presumed that the superior is. Y'all, I am so sorry. All right, we're going to roll this back. I apologize profusely. I am in a hotel with really raggedy, Louisiana sucks, y'all. Louisiana is garbage. I'm in a hotel with really bad Wi-Fi, and so that's what happens. And I'm going to lower this. There we go. So this should do it. All right. It says, Simone, I know. I'm not on vacation. I'm actually working. I'm actually here working. All right. But we were finishing up. We were talking about Astronomer. Here's the thing with Astronomer. Number one, he stepped down. He resigned. She's still there. They're doing an investigation. But here's the tea. If You've worked for Astronomer and you've had any issues with HR at all, this is your time to shine, okay? If Miss Christian has gotten on your nerves, maybe she's written you up for something, this, that, and a third, you may want to make sure that you've familiarized yourself with this really unique aspect of what's called sexual harassment law. Now, at this point, Kristen is not alleging sexual harassment um, from her boss, right? But here's the thing, a lot of people think the sexual harassment can only be from the boss to a subordinate. No, 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 no. In this situation where a boss and another colleague are doing it to each other, it could create grounds for other employees to bring sexual harassment. So here's what I want to break down for you. It says a boss, and this is from the EOC website for the government. It says a boss and an assistant having an affair in the workplace, even if that affair is consensual, can create a hostile work environment for others, potentially leading to sexual harassment claims for others. It says if the affair creates what's called a pervasive atmosphere of sexual misconduct, or if one party's advancement is based on their relationship, it could be considered unlawful discrimination specifically. It says employees experiencing or witnessing such a situation should report it to HR, obviously. Oh, wait, can't do that here. HR's the hoe. HR's the one doing it to the CEO. So you gonna report it to? Baby, you better get in there and report it to EEOC. Get in line, everybody. If you hate your job, if you hate your boss, if you hate Kristen, this just might be a way for you to get your little settlement. Take your talents on out of Astronomer. Now it says employees, right, experiencing this should report it to HR following company policy and potentially consulting with the EEOC or legal counsel. They consult with legal counsel. And factors that can contribute to whether or not there is a hostile work environment is what? Favoritism. I think he really, Christian was definitely his favorite, Kirsten, whatever her name is. It says the perception of coercion, like meaning you have to do this, the pervasive actual conduct. So for example, if other employees are having to see that these two are rubbing up on each other and doing this, that, and the third at work events, all of those things can go towards a hostile environment. So the hostile environment ultimately would potentially be the claim. Cha-ching. I'm just saying, this is for anybody, any job. If you know your boss or a coworker, see, I worked at this law firm, right? And this one partner, he was very married. Okay, he started doing it to this paralegal girl, and it started creating all types of havoc. Because first, she was like real ugly at first, and then first he builded a bear with her. Okay, she used to be shaped like a cereal box, and first he bought her some titties. Child, when they bought that girl some titties, it was melee in there because she didn't never want to do her work, and I can't blame her, right? If I'm screwing the boss, I don't want to do work either. I'm not gonna work extra overtime. My overtime is what I do, for him in our private time, hypothetically. So she didn't want to do her work, and in turn, it created more work for the other paralegals because she and her titties would come in, drop something, drop a document off on the desk and then leave. And she'd go to these long lunches with the boss, this, that, and the third. So that was an example how their interaction created a hostile work environment for others. Because the other thing is, other employees did not feel that they could complain about her behavior, about her not doing the work, she actually would take her assignments and assign them to other paralegals. Girl, what is you doing? You're not in charge of anything. First of all, you just barely graduated from Remington College with that little paralegal degree, okay? But because she was doing it to the boss, which is one of the named partners, people were fearful of complaining about her behavior and losing their jobs. So I just want anyone who's in that type of work environment to know you have options. You don't have to sit there and deal with all this melee like they're dealing with at Astronomer. And last but not least, so many have talked about his poor little wife. Oh, poor little tank. Let me see if I can put her look. I don't really want to show her face, but everybody else already did. So the wife, let me see. Do we have the wife? That's not it. So basically, both parties are married. So the CEO has a nice little wife and some cute little kids that look like they play lacrosse every weekend. Oh, here they are. Oh, she's actually an educator at some like boarding school type, prep school type place. Here we are. I don't know if you can see it. Okay. So there's her. So many of you, if you read the comments, baby, everybody's like, take them to the cleaners, take all this money, make them poor. Well, generally, I would support that. But unfortunately, the law of their state does not. So it appears they are located in Massachusetts. Massachusetts, regarding divorce, is what's called a no fault state, which means your husband can be doing it to 3 hookers, a nun, and a priest. And despite all of that, you don't get a dime more. The court simply doesn't take into consideration the fault and why you guys are getting a divorce. It doesn't go into play. So in other words, where people are like, yeah, tell the court you're going to get all this. Some states like Texas that would take that into consideration, you might be able to get a disproportionate fair. So instead of 50-50, you might be able to get 60. No, it don't matter. Nobody cares he was doing it to the priest. Nobody cares he was doing it to the nuns, a monkey, a dog, and 3 fish. It doesn't matter if it is a state that is a no-fault divorce state, such as California. However, one area where she could potentially get a disproportionate share, as in getting more, would be if she's able to show that he used family resources, family money to wine and dine old girl. Now, it's kind of unclear right now because apparently it looks like he's using company resources, right? They're in the company suite, etc. However, hit that like, y'all, hit that subscribe. But if she can find at all that he took her on trips, her or anybody else, and by the looks of her, I don't think that's his only mistress. She can't be your only one. Like, he just probably just be doing it to all types of people. Bless her heart, bless the wife's heart. So I just say that to say it's a real messy story. We're going to continue to cover it, guys. I apologize for the technical issues. Drop down below any other topics you want me to cover. It's your legal bestie. Somebody said, wait a minute, the fish too. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It don't matter who you're doing it to. If you are trying to get a divorce in a state that is no fault divorce, they don't care about the cheating, honey. I'm sorry to tell you. Y'all have a great one. It's your legal bestie, Attorney Simone. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, and let me know what other topics you want me to cover in the future. Bye.